issue.
Thank you, Dura. Well, welcome to Caregiving Cafe, everybody. Thank you to Dura Sims and True Heart Hospice for making Zoom possible for Caregiving Cafe. And today we have the pleasure of having Samantha Karabinas from Visiting Angels, and she will be speaking to us about long-term care insurance and to make sure that you're aware of the benefits that are part of the policy and to make sure that you use them before you lose them. All right. So thank you so much for being here, Samantha, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me. And again, just to kind of repeat who I am and what I do, my name is Samantha Karabinas. I work for Visiting Angels as a community liaison. Part of my job that I deal with quite in depth is something called long-term care insurance, because it is the only thing that will cover services for non-medical. And what I found out in this job, oddly, I fell into this job. This wasn't something I had been doing prior to being at Visiting Angels. So it was very eye-opening to me. And so what I discovered with long-term care insurance was how much it affects people, how it is the only thing that will cover non-medical care, and how the insurance companies, again, not speaking poorly of them, but they do not make it an easy process. They don't really explain it in a way that, you know, anyone can kind of understand. So it became kind of a passion of mine that I know that Lynn and Dura both know that I'll even take off my Visiting Angels badge and go and meet with them and help people figure out how to decipher their long-term care insurance. To say that the insurance companies don't love me is probably putting it lightly, but I feel like that's successful. That makes me good at what I'm doing. But so it's a passion of mine to get out and try to help people that have long-term care insurance and at least help them figure out what they have, what they're owed, you know, the questions to ask. And so that no matter what you decide to do with it, that at least you have all the information you need to go and make the best decision for yourself, for the person that you love. So that being said, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. I was thinking about Brian. Brian, I have a client a lot like you, just so you know, and to the point where his wife would follow him from room to room to room the entire day. And he, again, she's his world, and he adores her, but it was starting to affect his health as well. And it was a struggle for us in the beginning because he did not want to leave her. And he was so nervous about leaving her that he kept canceling services over and over and over. And, you know, it's easy for us to say, but I was like, you're going to have to just do that. You're just going to have to jump in with both feet and just leave. And I swear to you, she will be okay. The hardest part is really more for you than for her. And again, not correlating the fact that they are in any way equivalent to a child, but in some respects, and I know you probably already know this, I can tell you it is the same thing, that when you leave, maybe the first 10 minutes she might be a little bit disconcerted, and maybe a little bit longer, but after that she is fine. The best thing you can do is continue doing it, even though in the beginning she is going to be upset. This client of ours now, she loves the caregiver. She gets excited about her coming. And I thought, and he definitely thought, we'd never get there. And now you can see where, you know, it's such a bright spot for both of them, because now she looks forward to it, and he can kind of go with a peace of mind that she's going to be okay and be a little rejuvenated when, you know, he comes back. But it's something that's hard in the beginning, but I encourage you, you know, to try to just keep with it and know that eventually it'll be something that makes her happy as well. I mean, our client, she waits at the front door for the caregiver now, whereas before she was nonverbal, she wasn't really even talking to anyone, and now it's like she's just super excited to see her. And even the caregiver got emotional the other day because she's like, I just love her, she loves me. And you know, it just takes time. but hang in there. It is hard, but it will work, I promise, if you just give it a little bit time.
It's great to hear. Thank you.
Sure. And if you ever need any support regarding that and you feel, just questions in general, ask Lynn. I'm happy to help you or give you some ideas of kind of how to redirect her or certain things like that so that you can make the transition a little easier on yourself. I'm happy to help with that. As far as sharing goes, just so you know, it's 3 ounces or less that you can bring that you can bring in your bag. So as long as it's 3 ounces or less, you're good. So just letting you know, they'll sell little what do you call it? Travel sizes at the grocery store that are 3. You look at the bottom and it's bottle, it says 3 ounces. Or you can buy your own little 3 ounce clear ones and fill it up yourself. So
yeah.
There you go.
Less than half a cup, just so
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, not long-term care, but I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
I think I've met David before. I think David and Ron may have been on my presentation I did last time, if I remember correctly. And Joanne, I hope I can help you with some information regarding this topic. So I'll get back into it. So yes, going back to long-term care insurance, there are several companies that sell it. What I have discovered is that there are a lot of wonderful policies out there, but they are all different and they can be overwhelmingly confusing. The first thing that I tell people when they're looking at a policy or if they have a policy is number one, if you can find the name of the company or some families are like, I think we have it. I don't know if we have it. If you find any kind of name of insurance company and your loved one's belongings, even that will be enough just to say, hey, even if it's just the name like Bankers Life or MetLife or whatever it is, and you can reach out to them and say, hey, this is the situation. I just need to kind of verify if we have a policy through you or not. And they should be able to help you with that. The other part of that is, of course, if you do have a policy with them, they're going to need the person's approval to speak to you. So that's a little difficult if your loved one has dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that. That can be a struggle. So you want to make sure that you have power of attorney so that they will talk to you. Some of them are going to require that you send them a copy of your power of attorney, if not, or guardianship, that kind of thing. So that's the first thing I would mention. The next thing is when you're looking at these policies, you want to ask the first question being, is there an elimination period? Elimination period is basically pretty much on all policies. It usually is a 30, 60, or 90-day elimination is the usual. And what that basically means is for 30, 60, or 90 days, you're going to be required to pay for services out of pocket. And there's a lot of ways around that and a way to kind of cut back on the cost of that because out of pocket for that amount of time can add up. So I'm going to give you a little trick of the trade or some of the tricks of the trade to kind of scoot around that. And not because we want to do anything deceitful, just because it is so expensive and it's, you've paid for something that you should be able to use. And so it's only right that you're able to get that elimination period. And no one would have thought any different when you sign up for these things that, oh, elimination period, 30 days, that's going to be a lot of money. No one thinks that way when it's happening. I can tell you that a 30-day is wonderful. I've come across a couple that are 15-day. That's not very common, but usually the lower the elimination, if it is like a 15-day, then most likely it's going to be a shorter either duration or lump sum that you've kind of been paying into. So something just to keep in mind. So the elimination period, like I said, 30, 60, or 90 days. What that's going to do is a couple different things. When you're calling them, you're going to ask them, hey, so I understand that I have a 30-day elimination period. Do you waive that elimination period for home care or assisted living or skilled nursing facilities or rehab? So basically what you're asking is for each of these different kinds of services, do they waive that elimination? Some policies do. Some will say, oh yeah, for home care, we waive that 30, 60, or 90 days. That is incredible. If you can get a policy like that, definitely do it. I recommend it highly. Okay. Sometimes they'll only waive it for home care. Sometimes they'll only waive it for rehab, you name it. But it's something in any event that would be hugely helpful. If you do have an elimination period, what you want to ask is it calendar or service days? If it's calendar days, it's just what you're thinking, right? 30 days in a month, 30 days on the calendar. That's a great policy. Most of them are service days, which means that you need to have services for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days before they will start paying services. So when you ask for service days, the one trick I would tell you to ask them is, what do you consider a service day? What we mean by that is some will consider 1 hour of service a day as a full service day. Well, this is crucial, right? Because 1 hour a day could be anything from $30 up to $40. If you only have to pay $30, $40 a day for 30 days, well, gosh, that saves you a ton of money. Now, if they say, hey, a service day is, 4 hours a day, well, then that adds up a little bit. I'm sorry, Lynn, do you?
That's fine. That's fine. I did ask my husband, do not text me funny things unless it's a really good joke. That's okay.
I love that. Okay. But yeah, so just so you know, that can be a way around having to dish out so much money in the front end. So that's why you want to ask those long-term care insurance companies, hey, what do you consider a service day? Is it an hour? Is it 3 hours? Is it 4 hours? And for us as a company, which I don't know if a lot of companies do this, but if we can, we will try to provide services for that 1 hour a day to get you through your elimination period faster, even though our minimum is really a 4-hour visit per day. That's our minimum shift, is 4 hours a day. But if we can make it happen for you, if we can find the right caregiver that is willing to do just 1 hour a day to get you through that elimination period, then we will do whatever we can to help you with it. So that's just something to keep in mind. The second thing I would bring up is your premium. So a lot of companies will waive your premium after you get through your elimination period. This also saves you a ton of money. What I recommend to people is if they do waive your waive your premium after the elimination, and you're worried about using your policy. I hear from so many people, I don't want to use my policy yet. I'm scared I'm going to run through it before, before I need it really. And I explain to people, I go, first off, you've paid into something for most likely years, for thousands and thousands of dollars. They're not doing you a favor. So you've already given them all of this money. What I tell people to do is, instead of continuing to give them money, more of your money, put that premium, once they've waived it, into a savings account, right? So now you're not giving them any more of your money. You're starting to use the money you've already given them. So I recommend, if they waive the premium, go ahead and start utilizing that money that you've already contributed. Otherwise, most of the insurances companies in general are banking on the fact that you're just going to leave that money on the table. This money, most long-term care, it's very rare unless you have it attached to something like a life insurance policy, which is pretty much the newer policies that they sell are life insurance attached, which I think is brilliant. I wish they would have, offered that back in the day, but it's kind of a newer thing. So that way, if it's attached to life insurance, you can then, pass it on to a loved one, to a spouse, or to a family member or child. But these policies, the LTCI that are not attached to that, if you do not utilize it, you just lose it. So if you paid for 40 years into something and you don't at some point tap into it, then they're just going to take all that money and put it in their pocket. And that to me is tragic, because people have thought about this and planned ahead for this sole purpose. And the process to get through all the information is so tedious. that I think they, again, bank on it. Well, I know they do. The other part of it they bank on is they put people in the position as customer service. And again, I'm not saying insurance companies are bad, but they put them in those positions to answer the phone and not be able to answer your questions right away, and then put you on hold for 20 or 30 minutes at a time. Well, if you're caring for a loved one, especially if they're wandering or they're having issues, you don't have the luxury of sitting on hold for 30 minutes, waiting for them to find the answer to your question. And you don't even know usually the questions to ask. And they're kind of hoping on that. So what I say is try to get someone, and I'm happy to do it, to call that insurance company with you. Someone that knows the questions to ask, and I'm happy to send even a list of those questions to you guys, so that you know exactly what to ask when you call them. Just be prepared that they're going to sit there. Most of the people that are on the customer service calls are going to say, oh, what do you mean by that? I don't understand what you're asking, which is, again, tragic, right? Because if anyone should know how to answer those questions, it's the company and the employees that are there. So just be prepared for that, and you've got to stick to your guns and tell them, well, that's fine. Will you please, either one, they'll put you on hold and say they're going to go try to find that answer. Or number two, say, well, if you can't find it, can you please get me in touch with one of your supervisors? You've got to hold to your guns on this, because ultimately, if you're willing to kind of give up, then they win. They're going to be like, oh, okay, well, you don't care. All right, well, I don't care. I wore you out. Great, I win. And they're, they're off on their regular day. So please keep that in mind. So things that we've gone through so far are, elimination periods, premiums being waived, elimination periods being waived. Then you want to ask about your daily benefit. What is your daily benefit amount? And usually it's going to be, and I take that back, daily, monthly, or weekly. And the only two I see really mostly are the monthly and the daily. If you have a monthly, what you're going to want to do is basically just divide it by 30 or 31 days. That's going to give you your daily benefit. So usually they range anywhere from about $100 up to $150. I've seen some as high as $400 a day, which is a wonderful benefit. But even $100 to $150 is an amazing benefit. For us, if you think about it, for a 4-hour visit, and on average, we probably are about $144 a day. Yes, it can be more than that, but I'm just saying in general, kind of in the middle, that would cover, your visits for a day and then leave you again and be short $10, right? So that's great. Now, if it was $165 a day for us and you have $150, daily benefit allotted to you, well, then you're only $15 out of pocket every day. I mean, that's a huge difference. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you have one of these policies, it's very important that you use it. Okay, so that'll be your daily, and you'll ask them, is it a daily benefit? Is it a monthly benefit? The second part of that you're going to ask is, what is my overall benefit, the maximum benefit that I have? So that's going to be that gigantic lump of sum. So $100,000, $150,000, $300,000, and then it'll say the duration. Duration is usually lifetime, or it'll say 3 years, 5 years, that kind of thing. The interesting thing about the time frame and the maximum amount of money is when they put a limitation of 3 years and 5 years on it, they're going to look more at the lump sum of money rather than the duration. So I think they get into people's heads to think like, oh my gosh, if I start to use this policy, I'm only going to have 3 years and then I'm through it. That's not the case. So the way I'll explain that, if you were to use us, for instance, 3 days a week, 3 days a week times 4 days is 12 days a month, right? Basically, you're looking at 12 days each month. It's really only 6 months worth of services that you've done if you add it up for a year, right? So you've got 365 days. You've only used 12 each month. You're not anywhere near 365 days of services. So, or to your total amount. So what you can do is basically look at that as more of like 6 years. And if you're only doing 2 days a year, right? Or 2 days, sorry, 2 days a week, you could even look at maybe 8 years for that policy. So I don't want the 3 to 5 years to panic you. It sounds like this short, limited time, but it's really based on how many days and it accumulating to that, not on a calendar where they're ticking away. Oh, there's your first year. Oh, there's your second year. They're counting days of service, if that makes sense. So keep that in mind. The other one is they'll say, oh, it's a lifetime policy, which is great. But then you also do have to keep in, checking off that major lump sum, right? Because they're going to be ticking it away. If you have a company helping you with that, like myself, we will help you kind of keep tabs on that ticking clock or ticking amount of money that's going, right? And keeping you kind of up to date. Because again, the insurance companies, when they send you out this information, it's nothing if not confusing, right? So just keep that in mind, and it's kind of meant to be. So I'm hoping to just empower y'all with knowledge to go out and get what you deserve. So you've got the duration, the lump sum. The other thing you're going to want to know is what is considered their claim process. So when you call them and you say, okay, I understand what I'm owed, then what is the process for filing a claim? So a claim is saying, hey, okay, I think I need these services. And when you call them, they'll say, okay, well, there's many different ways they're going to go about it. One might be, I'm going to send you a packet. You're going to have to fill it all out. You're going to have to get that information to your PCP. They're going to have to fill it out. You're going to have to send it all back to us. And then the company that you're wanting to provide care is going to have to send their license, blah, blah, blah. Just know that the companies that are providing and know how to handle long-term care insurance, like myself, will handle that other part of it as far as the licensing and all of that. So don't let them scare you like, oh gosh, I got to go through all of these hoops to get the licensing and blah, blah, blah. That's not going to be on you. The only part that's going to be on you would be filling out the claim paperwork and then maybe getting it to your doctor. A lot of the companies will also send it directly to your doctor for you to get that approval and kind of their assessment. Other companies will send someone to your home to do an assessment. What I'd like to point out when they go through the assessment process that you need to remember, and this is very important, when they are asking you questions about what you need help with, and most of them are your activities of daily living. So you're bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, anything that's a normal activity that we all do on a daily basis. They're going to ask you, do you need help bathing? What you want to remember is on your very, very worst day, when you felt the worst, the sickest, the most worn down, that's how you answer that question, as if it were your worst day. Do not answer it in the present. You have to remember to that moment where you're like, oh gosh, I woke up the other day, or my loved one did, and they were absolutely wiped out, or they had COVID, or they had, you name it, and ask on that day, did I need hands-on help getting out of bed? Did I need standby help going to the bathroom? So those are the two levels. You've got hands-on assist that they're going to ask you, and standby assist. And standby assist can be even standing by in the home, meaning if somebody goes to take a shower and I'm in the kitchen as your caregiver, that is standby assist, because if something should happen, I am standing by to help you. Now, they're not going to explain that to you, right? But when they ask you, hey, do you need help with this? You have to be like, instead of saying, yes, I need them to, be in the home, your answer to that is, yes, I need them to be standing by when I shower. Right? It doesn't matter if they're in the kitchen or right next to you. It's, the matter that you do need someone there to make sure that you are safe while you're doing these things. So keep that in mind. So every time they ask you, I'm going to say it again, please just remember, you are answering for your very first day. Sometimes these are issues. I had one the other day and it kind of broke my heart, and I hope the nurse was amazing. So I'm hoping she's going to be able to do right by it. But the person that they were talking to has dementia, right? So again, in their mind, they don't need any help. So you have to, remind the dementia patient as much as possible, but then also when they're doing their assessment and you're there as their power of attorney or guardian, advocate, that now, I'm the main caregiver, and yes, this is what she is saying, but obviously due to dementia, I am standing by. I am doing, it's okay to speak up as their advocate and not let it just be straightforward answers, from the actual insured, if that makes sense. So those are some things to keep in mind. When you're looking at these policies as well, they're going to either be in a reimbursement, annuity, or indemnity. I really only see, and most of the time, reimbursement policies, which is pretty much what you want anyway. And what that basically means is you will pay the company to provide services, and then they will then pay you back for those services. There are some policies that will cover family members as the caregiver, which I say, please ask these insurance companies this question, because a lot of people are dealing with a family member as their caregiver. So the wonderful thing about this is that you can basically get the money back that you paid for yourself, basically. So like if you're the husband and you're the main primary caregiver, and this policy says that you can have an independent caregiver or a family member, then that means that they will then reimburse you basically the money that you've been paying in, right? So that is an amazing opportunity for a family caregiver. So definitely question that, ask that. They have to tell you. So that's something to keep in mind. To kind of backtrack a little bit about the premium, and I apologize, I left this out. On the premium, if they don't waive your premium, it still doesn't mean that you shouldn't go ahead and start using the services. For instance, your premium could be $150 a month, whereas you're going to get on your daily benefit $150 a day. So it's still worth it to pay your $150 premium a month to get $150 a day for 30 days. So I don't want you to be discouraged if you're like, well, they won't waive my premium. And if they say your premium, let's say, is per month, and it sounds like a big number, like $5,000 or whatever the case may be, take that money and divide it by 30. And you'll be like, oh, okay, I feel better now. You're still, just make sure you're getting more out of it than you're giving in, if that makes sense. Okay, just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything for you guys. We went through the activities of daily living. A lot of these policies will cover cognitive issues too. So that's important to ask. Is this policy just for activities of daily living, or will it also cover cognition? That is a big one, because a lot of the ones I come across, they do cover cognition, and that is a lot of what's going on mostly these days that I see. So that's something to keep in mind. And lastly, there's something called independent activities of daily living, IADLs. Those are your, laundry, light housekeeping, meal prep, planning, all of those things that aren't necessarily hands-on or personal care. Some policies, it's very, very, very rare, but we'll cover those as well. So you might as well ask. Our service in general, we provide those things, and really it's not broken out of the invoice to be like, oh, okay, we did 4 hours today, and 3 of those were helping with personal care, and 1 of those was doing laundry. So when we submit that invoice, it's going to be an umbrella and cover those little extras in there as well. So we do have to provide daily service logs to the companies, which is not a big deal, showing if we provided help with at least usually 2 or 3 of the activities of daily living in order to qualify. So usually that's bathing or transferring. As long as we've helped with at least 2 of those and it's hands-on or standby, then you're qualified. And that's really what they're looking for. So that kind of covers what's needed. Are there any questions about kind of the insanely wide amount of information I gave you, which I know is a lot?
Anybody? No, I think Well, to me, it was all pretty clear, and there's a lot, but I took notes.
And I'm happy to send, like I said, the questions to ask, the main things to pinpoint. And I would also say to people that you think might be looking into long-term care insurance, also have them ask these questions, because the policies are all different. And this is what makes them kind of more valuable or less valuable, are these little kind of intricacies. The one thing I forgot to mention is respite care. There is usually a part of the policy called a respite benefit. And that benefit is on top of the daily benefit that you get with your policy. So for instance, they may say, oh yeah, you have a respite care benefit and it's for either 21 days a year or 30 days a year. What you can do with that respite care benefit is huge. One, of course, you can take them to some facilities will have respite care where if you had to go on a trip or you just needed a break or whatever the case may be, you can use that benefit to cover their stay in a assisted living or a memory care or independent living. You can use that policy to cover it for 21 days or 30 days. The other part, and that's on top of your regular benefit, which is amazing. The other thing I tell people to do is, because you have, let's say, 30 days a year of respite care, you could take that respite care and take 2 days a month, right? Because 2 times 12 is 24, and you'll still have a little left over, 6 extra days on top of that, let's say. You could take 2 days a month and either add additional days to your regular schedule, right? You could use it to cover maybe a little bit of overtime if it's a holiday. You could use it to stack it. So let's say you have 4 hours and it's $144 a day for services. You could do 8 hours for a day and use your daily benefit for the first half and then your respite care benefit for the other half. Right? So now you're covering 8 hours in a day. So twice a month, you could have 8 hours a day. Or, so there's a lot of ways to be creative with respite care to kind of even give you a little bit more bang for your buck. So it's just all a matter about how to use them and how to use them to the best of their ability. So again, what I would tell you is I will send these questions to you guys so that you can share it with loved ones. If you need someone to be an advocate for you or a loved one with the insurance company, I am more than happy to do it. You may have to be on 3-way with me so they give me approval. And then again, I never speak to the insurance company really without the insured or the POA present. I don't know why they think, I guess they think there must be a lot of people out there trying to cheat the insurance company on their long-term care, which I have yet to find. But needless to say, there's no reason why I wouldn't want you there to listen to all of this. The other part of that is, if you do give me permission, because again, I may have to be on the phone for 30 minutes or an hour at a time, and I can sit there. I have the luxury of being able to sit there on hold, whereas you cannot. I'm happy to do so, but then at that point, I'm still just going to send you all the information. Just because I'm getting the information doesn't mean I'm going to use the information. It's not for me. I have to have permission. I have to have, you name it. I just want to make sure that y'all have the information so that you can help yourself and a loved one that needs it. And again, you're not doing them a favor. You paid for this. They're basically giving you your money back. So I want to make sure that you get that money back as opposed to leaving it on the table. So that being said, I will send that out. So any questions?
Okay, I was actually going to ask what you did address. If you're looking to get a long-term care policy, then what you answered it to ask those questions. And just to make sure that I understood, so if you don't use those benefits and I guess a person passes away, then that's done. You don't get money back. You're nothing, right?
Nothing. Thousands of dollars, Lynn, like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking to me. And so again, I always say, if they waive the premium and you're worried about it, then put the premium aside. If they don't waive the premium, at least, kind of do the math or have someone help you with the math to see if, you know, in the long run, it still makes sense to put that in because you're going to get more out of it than you are in it. And if you're paying your premium anyway, and you're going to keep paying your premium, then you might as well start getting something out of it. And that, like I said, if you do not use it, and they will completely, there is no transfer benefit unless you've signed up for that specifically, and that is extremely rare.
Okay.
So
I just thought of something else. I have heard mention a triggering event. Can you just start using those benefits whenever you're like too tired, or do you have to? I have heard of a triggering event. Can you talk a little bit about that?
absolutely. So a triggering event is usually the time when people do start to use it, but that's where I try to educate as well. If you can do it based on before a triggering event is like, oh, someone's fallen and now, you know, they're in rehab and they can't be home alone anymore. Or the person caring for them has now had an incident and they're sick and they can't care for them for this type of period or whatever. So that's a triggering event. But what I try to tell people to do, if you can, is be proactive, not reactive. The reason being is when you're in that situation that something has happened and it's forced your hand, now you have to make a decision that maybe you wouldn't have made if you had been able to take the time to think about it and what was best for you. The other great thing about starting services before a triggering event is that if you do that, then the transition for somebody that's had a triggering event is not as drastic. As we all know, if you have a loved one that has any kind of memory issue, dementia, Alzheimer's, MS, anything of that nature, change is very difficult for them. And it can spiral as well as be a triggering event, to be honest with you. So if you can get those services in place, just the bare minimum in advance, so that when things happen, it's not such a shock to your system. So, or their system rather. So yes, a triggering event is the most of the time when people start to look into it and utilize it. But if you can tell your loved ones to start to look into it before that happens, you will be so much better off in your decision process. And that's the other thing with the insurance company. If you're stressed even beyond what your normal stress level is, which is pretty high anyway, and now you're dealing with someone in rehab, or they're having surgeries, or they're having, sundowning, you name it, then your patience to figure out all this information is even less than it would have been before. So you're less likely to even dig into it or put up with it. And again, they win. So I just say, let someone help you get the information, even if you don't use it yet, at least have it. And then if you had to wait till a triggering event, at least you don't have to sit there and go, oh gosh, I don't know what to do, and I don't even know what this covers. You're set. Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Samantha. I have also heard that once you do have a triggering event, then those periods of like waiting periods, 30, 60, 90 come in. So it's not like, oh, okay, this happened, a triggering event by their definition. You don't get services immediately, right? That's when you start the wait. And I'm like,
well, yes, to pay out of pocket.
Yeah. So no, yeah, but I mean, to get the services. So it's even if unless they waive that period that you said, and they might cover, and that's why we need to ask, do they cover home care or whatever, so so it's so convoluted,
Yes.
So I'm glad that you're here to clarify.
Well, I know it's not a very exciting topic, and I'm sure it's like, again, it's kind of boring, makes you want to fall asleep, but honestly, it's like so important that you know what you have, because again, it's something you deserve. You paid for it. And it just, I don't know, it breaks my heart when people are in a situation that they really, really need the help, and people are putting up roadblocks at their most vulnerable point. Right. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that everybody that is in that situation has everything at their, beck and call that they need, because it's going to be hard enough with everything regardless. So
No, and I appreciate you enlightening us, with all of that. So that's why we have Samantha. So teach us about that. And it's the same for hospice, really, because most people don't understand. They don't want to know many times. And it's like, so, but I do not think it's a boring topic. I think it's actually very interesting. And as a family caregiver, we need to really, it's part of our responsibilities, whether we like it or not, it has nothing to do with it. We need to, it's like kind of doing like your homework, when you're in school.
Yeah. It is, you're right. It feels like that. It feels like a freaking school assignment. So yeah.
But we go with the flow and we do what we can. So, but thank you so much.
And I wanted to just say real quick, Lynn, you talked about hospice, and I know Dura's here, she's the expert, but I will tell you that I am also a huge component for hospice. And I'm telling you this, everyone, this right now, because again, our services are kind of the hourly care, and we are not covered by any other insurance other than long-term care insurance. But hospice is such a huge benefit because it is covered mostly by insurance, and they can help not just end of life, but quality of life and it's just basically, they're just there for things that just don't have a cure yet. I think people get freaked out because they think it's this end of life. It's more like, chronic heart failure. Well, there's no cure for that yet. Dementia, there's no cure for that yet. Doesn't mean that you're dying tomorrow. It just means that whatever you're dealing with, unfortunately, they just haven't found that cure for it yet. But they have such a huge benefit to help financially because they can provide supplies, they can provide medication management. There's so many things they can do. So before I jump off, I usually try to pair with hospice companies a lot of the time because I'm like, look, utilize them because they're amazing and they're covered by your insurance, and then use us for the hourly where, you're kind of getting extra service from this hospice company, and they're wonderful. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking about that. Dura knows I probably maybe even said something that it was not correct about it. But anyway, just wanted to mention it so that you guys use everything you can.
I was actually going to ask you on long-term care policies, because there are people who need hospice care that aren't 65, that don't qualify for Medicaid. Is there, in a long-term care policy, can you add a hospice rider or benefit?
Yes, you can. I have seen that. Yes. So I would say that's not a bad idea to look into. It's rare, Dura. Like, I think I've maybe seen one, honestly. But it is, mostly they'll do skilled nursing. This is the funny part about that too, Dura, because the skilled nursing facility also, as you know, will be covered by insurance usually. But again, if they're under 65 or there's an issue there, then, it's not, it's kind of a problem. But yes, so they do have those kind of caveats. Mostly what I see is, they'll roll in the skilled nursing facility before they would with a hospice, kind of benefit. They don't push those as hard. And so I would say it's really worth asking, and it would be smart if it's not going to tick up your premium too much. And you think there's even the slightest chance that you might have an issue before 65 to kind of factor it in. I say, add as much as you can to that, it's smart.
It's worth asking. So that was a really good point, because I certainly wouldn't think of that. And just, my husband did get sick at 48.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and sadly, that's the thing that I'm seeing more and more is there are so many people that are under the age of 65 that need hospice, and they're too well off for Medicaid, and they don't qualify as disabled Medicare beneficiary. And so you're in that in between, that gray phase where what do you do for care? So it's really something that if they haven't started doing long-term care insurance, really should think about, because people need, of course, they don't want to pay for stuff, so they're not going to, but people ought to start advocating for themselves more.
I completely agree. I think if you ask, it's always worth, because like I said, I think these insurance companies, they're not going to offer it up. They don't expect you to be that educated about it. So if you'll be surprised when you pose these questions I send to you, the answers that you get. So you'll be like, and because they'll be like, oh, I've never been asked that before. You're like, really? Okay. So I'll send those questions to you guys.
Thank you so much, because I will share them. Thank you. That's really helpful. And then I think that's also part of advocating for family caregivers, which I'm getting into now, just to try to get what we need and to voice those needs. And we don't really have a place to go learn about these things, you know. I know that there's some workshops out there that kind of help us to prepare for these things, but there's a lot of information that we need to, that we're responsible for, you know, that we don't even know we're responsible for, you know.
Right.
So but anyway, that's really great to know. So thank you so much, Samantha. I don't want to keep you longer than you are able to stay with us, but thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I hope you're not late, and we're gonna
Oh,
have food for thought. And I'll ask you if other questions come up. I'll contact you. Okay.
okay, great. All right. Thank you, everyone. It was so nice talking to everyone.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.